Hi. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about one of my favorite things to do in the world, and that is play ultimate Frisbee. I just finished playing just now, and let's see, we started at about 12:30. It's now about 2:30. So, probably in total we were playing for an hour, 45 minutes, close to 2 hours. It's probably about 87 degrees outside, beautiful sunny day. And, that amounted to about, an hour and 45 minutes of sprinting, running, diving for the Frisbee, running around, cutting, moving quickly, sweating like all crazy, and just having a lot of fun. It's a tremendous sport. It's such a blessing, and I feel so incredibly blessed to be playing this now. I came to the sport very late, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. It was approximately, I want to say 4 years ago, when I found the sport Ultimate Frisbee. I had never heard of it for virtually my entire life, and even Frisbee was something that I would almost never do. When going to the beach and stuff with friends, we'd always bring a football. We threw football. I would play baseball with friends, that kind of thing. I did a softball league. I was always into soccer. I loved playing soccer. And in high school, the sports I did were track, cross country, and soccer. So running was always part of what I had done. But for some reason and somehow, Frisbee just eluded me. Well, probably about 6 years ago, my buddy Ontis, I believe it was him, he found these light up Frisbees. They're really cool. I think they're called disc lights. And you press a little button on them and they light up in different colors, and they look really great. Actually, you can see them really well at night. They look like UFOs. And I think he had started doing this with another friend, but one time him and I were talking, and he's like, hey, you should come throw the Frisbee with me. And I was like, cool, that sounds fun. And so it started for a number of months. We would meet a few times a week, late at night, like 10 o'clock at night. The sun would be down. We'd meet at this park. We'd be the only people there, of course. It's a pitch black park. And he would be on one side of the field and I'd be on the other, and we would just throw that Frisbee just far, back and forth to each other, basically playing catch, but really high, really long throws. And there was something, and I've said this in other places as well, there's something so satisfying about throwing a Frisbee, because you put so much strength and energy into a throw, and the physics of it, the Frisbee, it naturally slows down and coasts for a very long time. And so if you see him throw it really far, if it was a baseball, there's no way you're going to catch it. If it was a football, there's no way you're going to catch it because it's gone. But a Frisbee will flatten out and even curve and stay in the air for a long time. So your job is to run and go get that Frisbee, no matter how far they throw it. And so that's what we did. We'd work up a sweat, getting exercise, basically playing kind of like, I guess, an intense version of catch with the Frisbee. So that was my first real, exposure to Frisbee in general. Well, then I was hired as a teacher up north in Northern California, and this is right when him and I were doing a lot of this Frisbee throwing. By this point I had bought my own light up Frisbees, etc. And I got hired as a teacher, so I moved up north. But I still wanted to play Frisbee and throw the Frisbee. And so I would, with students, we'd get together and we'd throw the Frisbee, or we'd show up for soccer practice, and I would bring the Frisbee just to have someone to throw with, because I wanted to keep it up. And then I remember there was a period of time where we kind of played this game. There's a baseball game where you hit up really high, pop fly, 3 pop fly. Anyways, I can't remember the name of the game. But we would do a Frisbee version of that, where there'd be a bunch of people, like 4 or 5 people on one side and one other person way over here, and their job would be throw it as high as they can or as far, and these guys had to run and go get it. And whoever caught it, got a point or whatever. So we did that for a while. We did that at night as well. Sometimes that was the light up Frisbee. That was fun. And somewhere in the course of that, during that time period, someone had mentioned to me this sport called Ultimate Frisbee. And I thought, okay, it sounds interesting. And they're like, it's kind of like football or soccer, but you play with a Frisbee. And I didn't really understand it or anything, but I thought, it sounds kind of fun. So when the sport was originally explained to me, it did sound fun. And we kind of just started messing around. Like, we'd go out onto the field and, I guess in a sense, very messily trying this sport called Ultimate Frisbee. And it kind of amounted to, we would play it on a super small little area. So it was like these little tiny little throws. Usually they were dropped, and there's people running around laughing and just kind of silly, but you get the feeling for how Ultimate Frisbee is played. And it was fun. We had fun doing that. And then a year or two later, when I was going to Santa Rosa a lot more, and had a new set of friends, we were playing football. We'd get together and throw football. And one day, since I had my light up Frisbees in my same bag that I kept kind of all my sports stuff in, I said, hey, let's throw the Frisbee around. And I remember we were tossing it around, and we enjoyed it. It was fun. And I want to say it was my buddy Tim, who was like, hey, you could tell he enjoyed throwing the Frisbee as well. And maybe I had said it or he said it. I wasn't sure. I'm not sure who. But one of us, or a combination of people being there, we were like, hey, we should play Ultimate Frisbee. And we decided to give it a try. We had already been kind of in this environment of, we would get together, like I said, and play football. We'd get together and play some baseball and whatnot. So it wasn't that hard to kind of get a group of people together to play Ultimate Frisbee. And so we met at Elsie Allen High School in Santa Rosa and kind of just threw it together, and it was pretty sloppy. I think between us, we had a very vague understanding of how the game is to be played. Basically, we knew that you can't run with the Frisbee. You kind of throw it to your teammate, and then you run and try to get open. And you're trying to score touchdowns, so to speak. And it was fun, because again, I always loved running, and there's a lot of running involved, and speed definitely helps. So Tim and I, kind of a little bit more so out of everyone else in that group, kind of really got turned on to the sport and wanted to learn more. And so it turns out that there's Pickup Ultimate Frisbee in Santa Rosa. There was a game on Tuesday nights and a game on Saturday mornings. And we decided to start going. And that was that was our first real taste of Ultimate Frisbee, because we started, little did we know at the time, but some of these guys, had been playing Ultimate for a long time. Some of them were club players. So they had played competitively or played at the college level, something that Tim and I did not do. Although I guess you could say he was in college at the time, so I certainly didn't do. But we kept that up for a while, and we wanted to keep improving the play, because even though we were having a lot of fun playing with our friends, we sort of, pretty quickly over the course of a couple months, 3 or 4 months, whatever, we started to realize that there's a strategy to the game, and there's a certain skill set in terms of how to cut, where to cut, when to cut, how to throw a forehand, how to throw a backhand, how to throw over the top of your head called a hammer, these different things. Tim and I would go, it was kind of funny in those early days, because I'm really curious. I don't know the level of play that we were seeing at the time, but some of those guys we'd watch and be like, man, they're so good. You see them throw that hammer? Whereas nowadays, like, we throw hammers all the time, but back then we were like really, really impressed, if somebody knew a hammer or, could throw a really good flick or something. So we began, I guess, in a sense, improving our game, and playing pretty often. We even started a Thursday night group. There was as I said, a Tuesday and a Saturday morning. There was also a Wednesday night group in Windsor. But we really felt, and we were so in love with Ultimate Frisbee, that that area could use one more pickup game, and it could. It was great. So we started playing Thursday nights as well, and we had a lot of fun. We had some really good nights. It started to grow fairly quickly. Played rain or shine, and in the fog and in the cold, you name it. But had a lot of fun out there playing Ultimate Frisbee. So that continued, for a while until, maybe a year. And then until I moved down south, I was still so completely in love with Ultimate Frisbee that almost immediately, as soon as I moved down here, probably even like the first week I was here, I sought out Ultimate Frisbee games, like pickup games, and I just jumped right in. I started playing Wednesday nights in Cerritos. I was playing Thursday nights in Irvine, Saturday mornings at Chapman, Sunday nights in Irvine. I think back then that was when there was a Monday night league. Oh no, Monday nights, that's right, it was in Irvine, a different Irvine, park in Irvine. And then Tuesday nights in Costa Mesa. And that was quite a year. That first year I was down here was probably the best I was ever at Ultimate. I was playing sometimes 5 times a week. But, and this is kind of where I'm going with this, and what I'm dealing with now is about, a year into that, playing all the time, playing at what I consider to, for me, a pretty high level. I felt, my game was solid. I was fast too. I toned down. I was lean. I was fit. I had my throws, etc. One night, it was a Thursday night, I believe, at Irvine Ultimate Frisbee at Woodbridge Park. I was making a hard cut to the disc, cutting under, so to speak. Full speed, sprinting. And this guy, I won't say his name because it doesn't matter, but he was pretty athletic. He was covering me. And we all wear cleats when we play. And in a full stride, he steps hard on my right foot, and all my body weight, momentum, since I was sprinting, kept going, but that leg stayed in place, and I didn't know it then, but I pulled my hip flexor. That's this muscle that connects your thighs, your calf muscles and your upper thigh muscles to your core, to your abs and all that. And it hurt like a mother. But I kept playing. I thought, oh, I'm okay. Because as I had always been, by God's grace, my entire life, I've always been so blessed, staying injury-free. God protected me from my first sporting days back in 7th grade or 8th grade flag football, all the little league years before then, through high school doing all those sports, and then all through my 20s and through most of my 30s. I did a lot of sports, playing basketball, and I did a lot of things, capture the flag, football, running. God protected me, preserved me, and I was just one of those guys that didn't get injured, played well, and I loved it. It's spoiled. Well, that day, in many ways, changed it all. Because that hip flexor, very oddly, as I said, I kept playing. But it turned out to be a pretty serious injury. Somehow, I don't know, it was the adrenaline or something. For some reason, it didn't hurt right then and there. But within a couple of days from him stepping on my foot and that injury, it just started hurting like crazy. And I found myself basically limping on the field, and I was so bummed. I was probably close to depressed, because this is what I did. I had a lot going on in my life at that time. I was at a low point, and for many reasons. And Ultimate was such a blessed escape. And it was suddenly gone, because I found myself literally, when I'd be on the field trying to play with this hip flexor, I was probably at like 45%. I was a shadow of myself. I'm out there like hobbling around, couldn't cut, couldn't do anything really. And because I was always primarily a cutter, even though I have a decent handle, which means I can throw pretty well, I wasn't like the most solid handle in the world. And so for me, the game just lost a lot of its joy because I couldn't play. So I took like 3 or 4 months off. Everyone kept telling me, you gotta lay off it. So I did for 3 or 4 months. And I'm telling you, this thing would not get better. 4 months into my recovery, not playing Ultimate at all, it still hurt. I'd be walking around at work and it throbbed. It always hurt. Well, 4 months turns into 6 months, turns into 9 months, turns into a year, and it still hurt. It would hurt. I'd get it in my truck, like basic movements, it hurt. And I was starting to think, you know what, I'm gonna have this injury the rest of my life. And so I decided, you know what, if it's gonna hurt, I'm just gonna start playing again, because I missed Ultimate so much. So I did. I went back, and I think I had probably a week or two where I played at like 65%. Still definitely was not anywhere near, because as soon as I would cut into like a deep, fast cut, I could feel it, and I would pull it back. And it happened to be in the winter. I remember that, and it was a winter Friday night league, and I was a team captain and everything. And it was cold, and I was in so much pain out there. And I literally decided right then and there, I said, this is never going to get better, and I didn't want to re-injure it worse. So I said, I'm sorry, but I'm done. And I had a guy who was kind of like the second captain. I had him just basically like, can you take over the team? And I stopped again. And that turned in for another 6 months. So I spent basically a year and a half out of the game because of this hip flexor. And it was tough. It was really a bummer. And after that last 6 months, I again decided, okay, started feeling a little bit better. I could still feel it somewhat, but it wasn't as bad. And I started to play a little bit here and there, kind of easing back into the sport. The thing is that I think your body does this. It compensates. When you have one injury somewhere, you're kind of going easy on those muscles, and so other muscles are working extra hard. So what I found was, even though my hip flexor did, I think, start getting better, suddenly I pulled my left glutamus, my butt muscle, and I pulled that one day. I was running full sprint for a score, and I just, I felt it just go, and that took me out for a few, number of weeks. And so I kind of had, gone from this person who, as I had said, was always just healthy. I've told this to Tezzy so many times. That's how I lived my life. I know there are people, and my heart goes out to them, because honestly, I'm not even sure what it's like. But they, people who deal with chronic injury or chronic illness, chronic pain, I never experienced that. I just never experienced it. Seeing the doctor is a rare thing for me. Thank God. Glory be to God. Going to hospitals and all that, it's super rare. I don't get headaches. I don't get sick very often. And to this point in my life, I didn't get hurt in sports. Well, then I was in this period where I was like getting hurt. Pulled the hip flexor, year and a half, pulled my my glute, and then I had some issues, you know, here, just little things here and there. I had an ankle thing for a little while, and basically what I'm trying to say is the injuries are on my mind more now, definitely, because I'm in a state right now where I haven't been injured for a while. My hip flexor, amazingly, is better. And it's kind of odd because I had become so accustomed to that pain that one day I was out there playing at 100%, you know, sprinting, felt great, felt fast. And I realized, almost like surprisingly, I was like, my hip flexor doesn't hurt. And that's when I realized it was better. I think my battery's going to die here any second. All right, well, I'm back. Sorry about that. Big change here. We're not big change, but my battery died, and I was unable to continue videoing. It was yesterday, I believe, when I started making that video talking about Ultimate Frisbee. But thanks to the power of the internet, I'm back. I was talking about having the injuries, and you know, for the first time in my life, going through this phase, and the thing that's the common denominator to all of this, unfortunately for me, is a factor that is inescapable, and that is age. I am not getting any younger, and even to be playing currently, you know, at 41 years old, it sounds so old to me. I know it's a tremendous blessing, you know, and I've had great years of athletic activity that's been a lot of fun, and a huge blessing, just, you know, in terms of health. And you know, exercising, playing sports is good for the soul. You know, it's so freeing, and it you know, removes anxiety. It kind of just gets you out there and puts things in perspective sometimes, you know. But I really wish that I had found Ultimate Frisbee 20 years ago. I wish I had found Ultimate Frisbee even 10 years ago, because I think that, you know, I could have been I could have been a contender. I could have played at a higher level, I believe. I mean, you know, I'm not saying pro or anything, not at all. I don't have the height for it. But, you know, just to play on some club teams and do that sort of thing would have been great. You know, I really don't know if I can do it now. You know, on some level and on some days, I play at a high level and I feel really good. And it's such a blessing. But then, like the very next day, or if I play 3 or 4 days straight, by that 4th day, I feel it. You know, I'm limping out of my car. You know, my feet hurt. I'm not really tired. Like, it's not, I don't get fatigued. I don't get tired in that sense. Like, I feel my conditioning is pretty good. I play the whole time. I'm not one of those guys that subs out, you know, and I feel good about that. But it's the aches, you know, it's the soreness in my right heel of my foot. It's the ball of my foot in my right and left, but it's always kind of varies from day to day which one it's going to be. I don't know, it's my feet. My feet hurt, and I think I need to, I don't know, maybe search for better answers, try different cleats. I've tried insoles, I've done different things. Nothing's worked so far, other than just taking a few days off. When I take a few days off, I come back fresh, I feel pretty good. But the problem is that I don't want to take a few days off. You know, I want to play. And the way the scheduling is, you know, for example, today, or this week, I played Tuesday night. There's no Ultimate on Wednesday. So I was 1 day off. and then I played Thursday, which was yesterday, and now I'm playing again today by God's grace. So it's going to be 3 days of play in 4 days. And I'm really curious how today is going to go. You know, my foot does hurt a little bit already. You know, still a little bit tender from last night or from yesterday day. And so I guess that's just where I'm at. I'm at this place where my body is finally doing what I've heard about so many times. You know, I've heard about this happening in other people's lives, and now it's happening in mine, to quote Morrissey. My mind, my soul is ready and wants to be out there running around nonstop, you know, 5 days a week. But my body is starting to say, you got to take it easy once in a while. You got to rest up. You know, some of these days you have to just say, no, can't play today. And that's a very humbling experience. I have also learned the value and importance of Advil. As some of the guys that I play with call it, vitamin I, right? Ibuprofen. Helps keep the inflammation down. That's important. Because from what I've been told from the doctors I've spoken with, and by doctors I don't mean doctors I've gone to see in the hospital, I mean doctors that play Ultimate Frisbee that I've talked to on the field. They all say that from the sound of it, the problem is inflammation. You know, it's a lot of these areas are getting worked and overworked from running, planting, jumping, you know, stepping on awkward angled dirt and grass, and all these things just puts pressure and stress and strain on these tendons and muscles and bones and all of it, and they get irritated, and they get inflamed. And then you play again the very next day, and it gets worse. And then you play again, you know, a day or two later, and it hasn't had a chance to heal. And so that's kind of what happens. You know, that's the problem. And you see it, you know, with the professional athletes who even have the highest level of workers and you know, kinesiologists, trainers, and all that. You know, they suffer with it because they're putting so much work on their bodies. You know, and I'm just doing this for the fun of it. So, vitamin I. My buddy Tim, the one I was telling you about, who we kind of found Ultimate at the same time together. He's almost half my age, and he's doing really well. He loves the game still. He's playing all the time, and he's at an age where I think he's probably, you know, in his prime, so to speak. And I think it's, you know, it's awesome. But he gets to play at a pretty high level, and that's fantastic. I'm really excited for him. I want to be there. I want to be doing that, but we'll see. We'll see what's in store. Some of these guys I play with out in this field, no joke, are in there. Well, not a lot, but there's like one guy who comes out sometimes. He's in his late 60s, and he's still playing Ultimate Frisbee. You know, and granted, of course, you know, he's not doing a ton of running. He's not, you know, diving for the disc or anything. But he's out there. He's out there running around, and you know, the guys, especially the young guys, you know, love seeing him, and it's pretty awesome. You know, so it gives me hope in the sense that, hey, if I'm still, you know, plodding around on an Ultimate field 30 years from now, I would be, you know, pretty pleased. That would be a huge blessing. But who knows, right? It's all in God's hands. So thank you for watching. You know, this has just been kind of a video journal of, you know, my thoughts about Ultimate, what it means to me, what it's meant to me, kind of where I'm at with it currently. It's a great sport, you guys. If you know, have heard of it or you're curious about it, maybe the reason you're watching this video is because you did a search on YouTube for Ultimate Frisbee and this came up. Play. Just get out there and play.